What's going on, y'all? Another week, another geek. We are back with the Why I'm Geek show with your homies G and Chrissy Light, man. Today, we are gonna be covering none other than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I know, right? I know. My hate will come later. It's like, nah. But listen, we finally was able to see this jaunt, and I'm super excited to get into this because today we're kind of switching roles a little bit. I'm not the biggest Guardians fan. Like, I get it, but it's just I don't get it at the same time. So, I might be a little bit more critical or whatever you want to say, but that's just how it goes. And Chris, you like Guardians a little bit more than I do.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm excited to see what you actually got to say, because I need to hear it. I need to hear it because we as I know, we usually go see these movies together, but
Hit up a new theater this time too.
yeah, and we talked a little bit about it, but we didn't really get into it. So I'm super excited to get into this, man. But Chris, how you feeling, Brody?
So I'm feeling real good. I'm glad we've branched out in our movie career. We've been to at least 3 movie theaters now,
Yeah.
and we've seen like the IMAX laser. We've seen this time was Magic Johnson Theater. There's only 2 in the country,
Right.
but
I
this
can
one had
see
a
why.
huge
It's like,
IMAX. Yeah, it has a huge IMAX screen, much bigger than the
yeah.
other one. But them seats, we
Mm.
literally bought a broken seat. That's crazy. But I was feeling nervous about this movie walking into it. I definitely went with no expectations, and I think I've said on previous podcasts and to you personally that I think this is going to be the flop again. Like there's been something wrong with Marvel going on, and I was really worried for this movie. And even watching the trailers, I was not hyped about it. And coming
Yeah.
off of Quantumania, like my Marvel like anticipation or hype has not been nearly as high anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going in with low expectations nowadays. So
Facts.
that's how I felt going into it. How about you, G?
Yeah, definitely not super crazy expectations. Just because I'm not the biggest Guardians fan, but also, like you said, like Marvel has been on a little run of duds. Um, but I still enjoyed it. Like, I knew I was going to enjoy the movie. I never really was thinking about it and like thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like a serious toned movie. Like, Guardians movies are just usually like kind of like gag films. But I was like a little worried about, if the Rocket storyline was going to be enough to like carry the whole movie, because like Guardians, they don't really, up until this point, everything's been about Peter. So it's like when you switch that for the final movie, like, are they going to be able to pick up that slack in a sense and make me care, essentially? Because like where we pick up with the Guardians, it's kind of like out of nowhere if you didn't watch the Christmas special, like.
Which I didn't.
Me
That
neither.
made me so mad, man.
Yeah. So it was like the movie kind of just starts and you just like kind of accept what's happening. But one thing I will say before we get into this thing, man, is animal lovers beware, because this movie is a lot. It is a lot, man. A lot of emotions and laughs, but a lot of emotions. I'm not gonna count. But first things get into it, man. Like, how did you feel about the opening?
All right, I have a little issue with the opening. I think it's a good opening. I think it sort of sets the tone that it's gonna be a little bit more emotional.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something these movies are trying to do now where it's like we show the trailer and then you don't really know what's going on in the movie.
Yeah.
And in the opening, they show Peter. He's been like super drunk and down because of everything that's been happening. Him losing his technically his whole family keeps dying around him, including his dad, which he murdered.
Right.
Gamora, who died but now is back from the past, and then he's trying to deal with all of this, like pretty much death, and pretty much Peter ends up on the bad end all the time. He technically murdered half the universe too,
Yeah.
like he's directly responsible for that.
Right.
So it was cool to see him in that state. But I kind of feel like when you watch the movie, they dropped this whole Peter being emotionally unstable pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like as soon as Rocket starts getting in danger, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, that storyline is gone. It was,
Mhm.
and I kind of didn't like that. I kind of wish that it was more throughout the movie so he can kind of get out of the funk.
Yeah.
But they did that whole thing where they're carrying him down the street. And the trailer made it seem like, oh, we're losing him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, what? This is the first half. So he was just drunk.
Yeah.
So I think the opening does a good job setting the tone,
Mhm.
but I kind of thought we would, because the tone was Peter was in this distress, and like you said, most of the Guardians movies, or all of them so far, were
Yeah.
about Peter.
Yeah.
They quickly changed his storyline fast, and we went straight to the whole rocket. So
Mhm.
that was my only little gripe that I thought they could have done better. But how'd you feel about that opening?
I enjoyed watching it. I'll say that. Now, like as far as like what we saw, I wasn't really like tripping off of like him just kind of just being drunk and stuff like that because we've kind of already seen Thor do that, right?
True.
And for this to be the final movie and like it not even kind of like reference the things that you're talking about as far as like why he's sad. To me, I never even looked at it as like he was sad because he, you know, killed half the world. It was more so because he just lost his girl. Like
Yeah.
that was his whole arc. And that's cool, but him and Gamora never had that like type of chemistry where I actually cared about their relationship type beat.
Yeah.
You know, when we first meet Peter, he just a player. You know what I'm saying? And he just doing his thing,
Play it for
and
free.
um he's just doing his thing, and then he meets with Gamora, and all that changes, right? So like initially, I like that, right? But with him in loss and him kind of just sulling over it, I was just like, all right, I'm here for the Rocket storyline. I don't really care that Peter is like this, like other than like just like she's still alive, so you got another chance. You already know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you've done it before. If you really want to do it, you can do it. But that was just kind of my thoughts on it. And then initially, like after we got to start touring, nowhere, I was like, yo, this is really cool. Like I wondered how they got there. Like because I didn't see the Christmas special, like how they you know got to that being their own paradise essentially. And we got to see like them fixing everything up, which was cool, and like just a cool like opening sequence with some good music. And then all hell breaks loose, and that's when the movie starts, and I'm like, okay, I'm locked in now. I'm locked in.
Yeah.
So like it was a lot of lore that dropped in this movie,
For
um,
sure.
that I wasn't really expecting, and then you know it was like a level of seriousness that we're just not accustomed to, but I think played off well as far as like the situation itself. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I feel about the opening. As far as like once things got started and we go on the save Rocket arc, um, initially I thought that Adam Warlock was going to be, I don't want to say more of a threat, but like I thought he was going to do way more damage than he actually got to do. Because really he only hurt Rocket because Rocket was getting ready to go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Technically.
like he didn't have none of his stuff on or anything, right? And it got me to thinking about like the grade A beatdown that he gave these people, but then they just kind of just pop back up, like they get the little med pack thing, and everything snaps back right, and then that's that. So I'm kind of like still don't really understand the full gravity of just how vulnerable they are. Like obviously Peter is human, half human, right? So
Yeah.
like other people can do all this stuff, like break their limbs and get blasted by a whole bunch of stuff, and like as far as like the spectacle of that, I think that's cool, but it kind of like made me feel like I don't know. I don't know about Adam Warlock right now. Like even though he did all of this like unwarranted essentially before we figure out why he's even going out to these places, I was kind of like, man, he just like he didn't say anything. He just got to business, which is a cool thing in the moment. But like after the fact of him leaving, it was just like, okay, I guess we're here now, and that's like the kind of chaotic storytelling that Guardians movie does or do, that I'm not the biggest fan of, and it kind of felt like they were like piecing the movie together as they was going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what it, did you get that sense while watching the movie, or it was a little different for
Yeah,
you?
I pretty much 100% agree with everything you said. I kind of think they mismanaged Adam Warlock's character completely.
Yeah.
It made leaving the movie. It kind of made me believe they should have had Adam Warlock beforehand
Mm-hmm.
in the universe already. Maybe even already chasing after the Guardians in Guardians 2 or something.
Right.
Because it just feels like he comes in, does a little bit of damage, leaves. Comes in, does a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of damage, leaves. And I guess they're trying to like strip feed you him
Yeah.
like being introduced, and they don't want him to take over, but he's such an important character that I just feel like the
Mm-hmm.
way they used him, he would just appeared and it's like, oh, look how strong this character is. All right,
Yeah.
he's flying off. Oh, he's a little kid, so he's not fully there. I was just like,
Yeah.
ah, I don't know if I really.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's mismanaged in the movie. That's all I say. I feel like you could have damaged Rocket any other way
Mm-hmm.
and still gotten the same movie.
Right.
Uh, but they wanted to get Adam Warlock in as soon as possible, so then they
Mm-hmm.
could start using him in future stuff. So I really wasn't a big fan of Adam Warlock. I think maybe he'll
Yeah.
grow into a character I like in the future, just not in this movie.
Yeah. Like I agree. I like the premise of why he's chasing them. I think if we first got to see him, like you said, in like a previous movie, like the second movie, like being more of like, oh, I gotta go after them, like, cause they already showed us, or like kind of showed us that he was coming, um, and I was just like, oh, but like once we figured out like who the big bad was, and that the big bad was the one who sent him, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I like that, But then when we actually get character moments from Adam Warlock, I was like, I'm not, I'm not really messing with him like that, like at all. Um,
Hopefully, a future movie or sideshow will improve him, but yeah,
yeah,
not really messing with them.
yeah. Um, I think like I like I like the initial pace for this movie, just because it was like very punchy, but as we was going along, like once we understood the gravity of the situation, I feel like it kind of drug on.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that or no?
Yeah, there was something wrong with me personally. Like I said, I liked the beginning. It felt like they were going for a more serious tone, but then when we
Hmm.
get to that first initial like prison break
Yeah.
sequence with the flesh
Hmm.
facility and the colored suits, I
Yeah.
felt like they were trying to capture some silliness that the previous Guardians had, because Guardians movies are pretty colorful sometimes
Hmm.
and vibrant and wacky and goofy, and I
Yeah.
felt like they were trying to go for that again. And that whole prison break sequence, I
Yeah.
just did not like that much.
Hmm.
It did feel very Guardians, but I just felt like, oh, they're gonna get out this scenario completely.
Hmm.
Um, and the way they introduced it, it was like these super meaty armored suit people are hard to get through, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I just didn't buy it at all.
Right. Right.
And then them
Yeah.
even conning the nurse to help them get the information, and him like trying to woo more, showing like, oh yeah, you see I'm smooth. Like
Got that
I
Riz.
was, yeah, I got the Riz. I was just like, I really do not buy this entire
Yeah.
sequence. And maybe it's like one of the early models that they had for the movie, like, oh, we're gonna do a prison break again.
Hmm.
I just didn't feel it. But how do you feel about that whole flesh facility and them getting the information of Rocket's origin story.
I always like having a heist in a movie,
Okay.
you know. But this wasn't heist like this was kind of like, all right, you know, we're gonna work our way through these characters so that even if you don't understand what's going on, like from like if this is the first time seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, this is a way that we can explain why the Guardians are the way they are before we get there.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like I didn't mind that as much. My whole thing with that part of the movie was just like, and this was a trend throughout, was just like how they kind of used like the action sequences to kind of just kind of like wash everything away that we saw. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like even if you get the whole lore and history lesson from Peter on why Gamora is not here and with the Guardians, even though she has been with them the whole time, whatever, we're going to explain it in a funny way, but in a way that allows us to, like, you know, just get this part of the movie done so that we can get to which I want to see, which is them in action, right? Because for me, like, they always portray the Guardians kind of like they are always outmatched and outgunned, but the people that they fight usually aren't like super crazy. You know what I'm saying? So like, yes, these people definitely have numbers and like as far as like the high evolutionaries, you know, troop or whatever. But when I look at their suits and I look at what they kind of do, the only thing that comes to my mind is just like, okay, they just don't want to have a high body count. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a moral standing when it comes to that, but I never was like, oh man, they're never gonna make it out of here. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I wish that that was more of a thing because yes, like it like the place itself, I forgot what it's called, but that being a living organism, I think it's really cool. Just because it's
Yeah.
like a ode back to ego, whatever, right? Because it's like he was just like a living thing, and it was a planet, and I was like, okay, like we're sticking to the theme, and like you know, there's this research that is like a really cool thing to have all this knowledge, but as far as like him still being the bad guy, like y'all can go and blow everything up for all I care. You know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of like a harsh content loop of, you know, them going to places and then them like feeling like, oh man, how are we gonna make it out of here? But obviously they're gonna make it. And then it's like, all right, slow mo. Everybody loves slow mo. And then we're gonna do a harsh cut with linear like narrative points. So like it felt very chaotic, but at the same time it felt like, well, I'm here for a Guardians movie, and that's kind of just what they do, you know. And that's where I get the most like concern and like I don't know, frustration is the right word as far as like the storytelling for it. It's just I don't really like that. I would rather it be more of a fully like fleshed out like sequence thing, and it's just like I don't know, it just be better to me. Um, and I feel like they have to rush. Like that's where I feel like the pacing is bad because it's like, okay, we can't be here forever. So like these conversations that would usually probably if this was a show, um, take a couple episodes to really get through and flesh out. We're gonna do it in a whole elevator ride, and then you know now we have permission to blow everything up, and that be the thing, you know. So it's like there's definitely things that I definitely like about the movie, but there's some major points where it's like, dang, like, eh, okay, I guess, type thing. Um, but you know, once they get all the information, like, how do you feel about like the higher evolutionary is himself as far as like just where we're at in the story right now? Because at this point in the story, I really like him as a villain.
Definitely. As soon as we get to like right after that portion,
Hmm.
I pretty much love the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I think the high level Evolutionary is a very, very like cruel,
Mm-hmm.
dark, twisted villain,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think he is one of the better villains. And for some reason, Marvel has
Yeah.
done very good with their villains
Mm-hmm.
nowadays,
Yeah.
and it was just very, very genocidal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it was much worse to me that I thought than Thanos when Thanos
Yeah.
was talking about snapping his finger and killing half the universe. Like
Right.
that's genocidal on another level. But
Right.
Thanos's method just kind of seemed like um he thinks he knows better than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This dude is just like
Like Thanos is a
everything.
dad. Like that's how
Yeah,
he's like. He feels like he's the dad of like the universe. That's
yeah.
how I
Like
kind of
he
look
needs to
at it.
take care of the universe because he doesn't want what happened in his life to happen to everyone else. Like he
Mm-hmm.
thinks that's the most cruel thing.
Mm-hmm.
This dude just believes he can perfect the universe.
Yeah.
And you just see the cruelty that he goes through for, in his opinion,
Mm-hmm.
a vision. And even his initial vision, when we see it completed
Yeah.
later on in the movie, when we see them actually living,
Mm-hmm.
you see that it's not enough to him, and you just
Yeah.
see that it reminds me of when people say like you get all this money, and
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you get like $1 million, it's just not enough. Get
Mm-hmm.
$10 million, it's just not enough. And that's
Right.
how it feels to this dude. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just a genocidal, like no matter what his creations do, they're not going to be perfect enough, they're not going to be better than him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just he doesn't even care about these creations.
Yeah.
So I really like the villain, and I really like how he moves about. I kind of wish we would have got a little bit more of him, because I kind of feel like they stick with one note, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna perfect the universe, and that's it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the only note we get.
Yeah.
But I think he's cool. I think the actor did a crazy good job.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit biased. I kind of think he did better than Kang,
Yeah.
than the Kang movie. So
But
we're gonna see if Kang comes back in Kang Dynasty, and,
so
and gives me an A+.
yeah. So I think that has more to do with the hype that youngins had going into
Yeah, maybe.
Ant-Man, and as far as like what we were expecting, because they are similar in natures, like as far as like they're scientists, right? They have different goals, but we have a different level of expectation for somebody that's supposed to carry the rest of the MCU versus the
True. That'd be
one-off,
cool.
like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy villain. Because if we think about the villains and the big bads of Guardians of the Galaxy, like this is probably like the only one that's really is
Legit.
is legit and worthy of that title. Um, but like as far as like what they were able to do while like flashing back in um Rocket's memories and be able to build this character up as far as like the manipulation and also just like you said, just carelessness of for life, because he
Yeah.
can just make more, put him in the pot and make more, right? um it was one of those things I was like, dang, like that is true, like evil. Like I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
bro,
some
like
evilness, bro.
that is insane. So I get it, but like I feel like they just try to make him king. Like I don't know
A little.
why he was purple. Like I've seen him in the comics where he was red, had a red suit. But like once I understood, like, oh, he created all these things and he created Adam Warlock's people, and like he thought he mastered it, but they all just end up being dumb. And like that was their flaw. So that he moved on from them. But as far as like what he's done and like what his mission is or whatever, like I was like, oh, like now he's actually different, and if we don't stop him here, like it's just gonna continue to get worse. So like end goal, insight, I like that, right? But once we actually, you know, start getting into those things, like that's where the kind of chaos and um reasons why like I never really understood Guardians of the Galaxy until now start to happen. Because for me, I think it's just a big D&D campaign. like with four superheroes. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I say that is because it's not necessarily about what's happening, it's about how what's happening is, affecting the troop or the group, right?
Mhm.
And their friendships and the ebbs and flows of those things. So it was never so much about like, you know, oh, we got to save the high evolutionary because the high evolutionary is doing bad things. It was like, oh no,
Very true.
we have to solve this and figure out all this so we can just save Rocket, and
Exactly.
everything
Yep.
else is kind of a bonus thing,
Yeah.
because it was more so like we don't even care if you really die or not. Like this is like it's kind of like how like Marvel is notorious for doing this too. Um, well, no, actually, nah, they're kind of not. But it's like how um when Goku let Vegeta go. That's kind of how I felt like initially with Adam Warlock, and then I felt that again with the High Evolutionary because it's like, nah, we're not gonna kill him because that would just make me them. But it's like, yo, look at what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like he won't be able to rebuild it again if that is the case. Obviously, he's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, come on, like let's show some tact as far as like what we're doing, or even if that person, Rocket doesn't want to do it because it won't hurt him, somebody else go do it.
Yeah.
And it's like we don't know what actually happens to him because we don't see it essentially. Um, but you know, overall, I feel like the major plot points that were supposed to hit definitely did. I did shed a thug tear one time, like in the moment, but it wasn't like oh I'm crying or whatever. It was just like oh I felt that, regardless of how cheesy the moment was, because like I could have wrote it myself. I literally like while I was watching, I was like, dang, don't do it, don't be the one, like I wanted to see something kind of different in that way, but um they kind of really do set you up for these great payoffs
Yeah.
towards the end of the movie. But everything in the middle, things get like a little wonky, and we kind of do the same thing multiple times. So like, how do you feel about that? Because I that's for me where like the movie really kind of takes a hit, not because of the big bad, but just because of how they kind of go about telling the story.
I mean, I really think they hit a home run with how they showed the Rocket storyline. I think you actually get an emotional movie at that point. You get some
Yeah.
characters that Rocket only knows, and you see kind of like why he is so messed up the way he is.
Right.
It's a very emotional thing uh, that we watch,
Mm-hmm.
and it also shows us how much of a genius Rocket is. And Rocket is crazy cute as a little raccoon.
Yeah.
And even the reveal of him being a raccoon, and then he
Yeah.
says, "I'm Rocket Raccoon." I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
this is such a good like send off to
Right.
Rocket." And
Right.
I just think when they were writing Rocket's storyline, they just aced that thing completely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do think the only like you said something that I think you hit the net like hit the hammer on the nail was when the high evolutionary like blows up the planet.
Yeah.
I feel like they just completely missed the fact that he just blew up a whole planet of habitable people.
Yeah.
And like the Guardians, like you said, an issue with the Guardians, they kind of are just like, well, we're saving Rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, he just annihilated a planet.
Yeah.
And y'all are just like, oh, where y'all at? Oh,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you have to have a little bit more emotion and pull like that happens
Mm.
because like at the end of the day, they did murder a whole bunch of people, but they kind of sidestep it because they're like, oh, there's children on the ship, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, there's the animals on the ship, so they're gonna
Right.
save those at least. But it's like,
Right.
bro, y'all blew up a planet and like forgot about it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Didn't
The
did
galaxy's
not.
big, man. They got stuff to do.
Yeah, that's kind of like what goes on in like their mind. Like, we
Yeah.
can't save everybody. But
Right.
I just felt like him blowing up a planet, y'all should have felt like, oh my god, this dude is evil as ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely do like that whole sequence, them going to was it New Counter Earth?
Kind of Earth, yeah.
I liked all that. It was a little goofy.
Mm.
And even the characters themselves, they do get a lot of time to themselves for you to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And then I do think it does pay off at the end where each character kind of got their moment in the movie that when
Hmm.
they get sent off,
Hmm.
you kind of feel fulfilled because Drax's character storyline was really good.
Yeah.
Groot's was crazy good. We're gonna talk about it later.
Yeah.
And Gamora did slowly like turn over to
You
like a
start to
different
understand.
Gamora, but like yeah, she
Yeah.
understands.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's amazing how we can watch previous Gamora and this Gamora
They're so
and
different.
see how
Yeah.
actors can act so differently
Hmm.
and feel fulfilled
Hmm.
being a different version of themselves. So I really
Yeah.
like a lot of like I said, after that initial prison break scene, I pretty much really like what they did.
Hmm.
Kind of just wish they would have made High Evolutionary have a little bit more lines that,
Yeah.
gave a little bit different notes, but Rocket storyline, incredible.
Right.
Um, and Peter does a good job. I'm not gonna say it's bad. I just think it's solid. Like we've seen enough Peter main storylines that I
Yeah.
feel like in this movie it's good enough.
Hmm. Yeah. I think. I mean, I'm not mad at the Peter depression arc, right? Because like his
I'm just
whole
talking about like afterwards, like
yeah, but
how he goes about stuff.
his whole character is kind of just like, man, I almost said something mean. It's kind of just mid to me. Like if I was to compare him to anybody, not because of like his actions, but like the vibe he gives off, it's it's definitely like a Tanjiro vibe where
Gosh.
like he's very capable, right? But his emotions lead everything about him, and he's always gonna figure out a way to win, but it just might also cost some things. And I have to think about it more, just because like I never really like thought about Guardians. Like I think this is the first Guardians movie I've ever actually reviewed. I'm pretty sure it is. It has to be. So like thinking back to who Peter was before
Yeah.
and who he is in other movies, it's more so just like he's here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't really strike me as like the, oh, I'm really leading this story, and they play that really well with his character. And I think, you know, when he was at his best when Thor was in the picture, because you can see somebody that who is just who they are, and Peter's always trying to be something, not that he's not, but just like be something more than what he sees himself as. So, you know, always figuring out a way to, survive or do whatever, and like he'd be like, no, this is my thing, this is what I do. Like that's, to me, that's funny. But other than that, like those moments, I was just like, dang. I was like, oh, okay, I guess like let's keep on going, and I definitely do agree that Drax was good, but I think for me it was the combination of Drax and Mantis. Like I feel like they stole the show. Like I really really like them two together. Just because it's like, big brother little sister type vibes that they're both like just, they both dumb, but like they think the other one is way dumber.
Yeah.
Like that's
I
the
just
that's
don't.
the vibe that they give, and I think I could watch that all day. You know, and if it wasn't for them, like this movie definitely would have been super super heavy, because it's like they're not, those characters are not here to kind of like um come up with a plan, soothe the situation, or whatever. They're here to make you laugh, and that's what they do best. Um, but other than that, like you said, I love where they stand in the end of the movie. But I really really like how they built kind of like the world out, because this is like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like we really got to see the galaxy, with this movie, and I like that aspect of it. Um, But I want to pose this question to you, and this is something I was thinking about. Would you rather have our Guardians movie or like a long running show? I
Mm,
feel like it would be better if it was a more of a long running show than a movie because you can spend the time on the things that you know you need to as far as like building out characters because there's so many of them, and then not feel like, oh dang, all right, we got to jump from this storyline to this storyline to this storyline, and then they got to intersect at some points where we get those moments. It's like, oh dang, like they really do like love each other type thing.
I guess it could be a show. Like I kind of do like it being a movie, just because like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is like whenever they're doing something, it's legit. We protected the galaxy somehow. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And then like
Mm-hmm.
all their side stuff is just helping out, different parts of the galaxy. But the main like movies are supposed to be how did the Guardians actually save the galaxy without anyone even
No.
knowing type thing.
Yeah.
So that I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of why I like it. Um, but I could definitely see like a movie where they're just doing little side things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just really feel like when they say like, "Oh, we're the Guardians of the Galaxy," they wouldn't be saying that unless it's like a big deal type
Mm-hmm.
uh mission, you know? Like
Yeah.
I would hate for them to be like, "I'm the Guardian of the Galaxy." They save one planet. Like, nah, you can't be using your catchphrases like that. That's all.
Yeah. But it's just I don't know. I feel like it would be better. But I get that. I get that. Um, let's see. If how did you feel about the like kind of like the ending? Because we kind of like talked about it, or because we talked about like his revival a little bit. But um, how do you feel like about the like last arc of the movie?
I really like it. I think
think I
the
was
the
peak.
space battles are really cool. I think
Yeah.
the action scene when the Guardians get back together and they're invading the ship as a team is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Some
Yeah.
some actually good action.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me say this: the whole movie has really good action. It's a good action movie,
Yeah.
and then I just feel like sometimes the high evolutionary. Maybe you could have used your strong powers like blowing up the control center. You could
Mm-hmm.
have just used that against the Guardians.
Yeah.
Uh, but I love the way they end up teaming up on him and let Rocket kind of decide his fate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then that whole scene of like them saving the animals or Rocket going to save his people,
Yeah.
and I really, really, really like it. And then he's like, "No, we can't just save like the kids. We got to save them all." Because
Right.
like Rocket is a raccoon and like he
Mm-hmm.
is an animal, so it's like him saving his entire species. And I just think it really goes
Yeah.
back to like they are the guardians of the galaxy, and the galaxy isn't just like people; it's also like animals. So it has a very, very deep meanings too, and even
Mm-hmm.
that whole death scene with Rocket
Mm-hmm.
seeing Lila, I think it
Yep.
is,
Yep.
and her friends. Like that is some of the most emotional stuff I've ever seen,
Yeah.
and it just goes to show, like, we always think us humans are like the ones that have like afterlives and stuff like that, but seeing it on screen with animals
Mm-hmm.
was like just as impactful. Like animals have friendships, they
Yeah.
have a whole livelihood, and Rocket even himself was like, they don't even need me here no more, and like
Right.
their afterlife friends are like, yeah, one day we'll play. Oh, we'll play in the sky. Like
Yeah.
I was like, yo, this is rough, man. Like,
Yeah.
so I just really like a lot of the end
Mm-hmm.
things, and I love the last. We'll get to the very, very end later. But what do you
Yeah.
think about like the action space stuff? Them breaking into like the children's arc and
Yeah.
animal arc.
Yeah. I agree with you when you say like I wish the high evolutionary would do more things. Like for Rocket to kind of be the only one to really experience that, I feel like is like a disservice. Because if you're that powerful, you could go and do all the stuff that you need to do instead of watching from a command center. Like, and I get if it's like a space battle, that's a little different. But the people that's actually in your base, like he waited way too long to try to save, quote unquote, his operation and made no like thought into that, like how he was going to kind of escape. He was like always just on the vibe of like, one
Yeah,
track minded or whatever, in that sense
just
of
get
like
Rocket. I don't
just
care.
got to get Rocket, right? But you know that overcompensation or just like that singular focus um really really helped in that moment. But like the chemistry between all the Guardians is good. Especially when they're in their fights and like you got the music going and it's got all the different slow mo and all the different ways that they fight together. It really does feel like they've been fighting together for a really long time. And just like being able to see all the things Groot can do now,
Yeah.
like he's literally a hang glider. He grew, like he was ahead. It was like he was doing a lot. He was doing definitely doing a lot in this movie that I really enjoyed. Um, and then as far as like how things shook up, I think Rocket completely understand you letting him go. Somebody else needed to blast him. Somebody else needed to take care of business to protect the rest of the galaxy. Because just because he blew up, don't mean that he died. Or he has another conscious somewhere else. Because they never really got into why the high evolutionary is the way he is, and we kind of like saw one glimpse of like, oh, he's off his rocker. As far as like when he came to Rocket, uh, before he finished getting all of his treatment, that led to me like, oh, what is that? Like, what? Or is that why he is the way he is? Like as far as like his skin and all the other stuff later on in the movie, or like what? You know, um. So it was good, but it just felt like this movie at times was like a 7, and a lot, and then other time like 2 seconds later it'd be like a 9, 10, like immediately, and I was just like, yo, pick one, you know what I'm saying? Like just be great the whole time, and it was just like that. That was kind of like why I'm like in between of like kind of where I want to rate things, but other than that, I think it was just like the ending was kind of just like par for the course. I don't feel like they did anything super crazy that had me like, oh man, this is the most wild thing I've ever seen. The only thing that would suffice for that is just like how the rules of nature don't apply to the Guardians, bro. You know, like you put that med pack on them and you straight, you good. You know, so that's kind of how I feel about it. But I don't really got that much else about the movie itself. You know what I'm saying? But what you got anything else for it? Like I know you want to talk about Groot.
I'm just the group part. I mean, we
Yeah,
we get the confirmation that Gamora the whole time says like we all just make up what he's saying, right?
yeah,
And the whole time he's like, I'm Groot, I'm Groot, and then at the
hmm,
very end, he's like, I'm Groot, and Gamora she talks to him like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I'll be there in a minute, and it's like, oh, she's learning how to speak Groot, and
yeah,
then at the very few scenes later, we get the I love you guys,
yeah,
or I think that's what it was, and
yeah,
I was like, oh my god, I speak Groot, like
yeah,
that was the craziest thing because it's just you always just assume that yeah, they once you get a connection with Groot, you understand
hmm,
how to speak, like talk to him.
yeah.
And I just thought it was just such a beautiful like
Level up.
level up. Like it is so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, I really like the way they wrap up all the Guardians. It's
Hmm,
difficult. I remember when the first Guardians movie came out. There's just way too many characters. Um,
hmm,
I think they did a great job of sending them all off. I think it was a great storytelling for Rocket and even Gamora. She didn't join the crew or nothing. She went back to her
yeah,
people, but she sort of understood.
yeah,
And they did a great job of Star Lord returning to pretty much his grandparents.
hmm,
Dude, you always had the ability to go back
yeah,
and it just makes sense for him to you know come back and say like, hey, I'm okay, because the dude
hmm,
left in the night. So
right,
I just think when it comes to like these trilogies, there is a certain mark you always got to hit, and I do think they do a good job hitting it for Guardians 3
yeah,
Volume 3.
right. I think good send off for James Gunn for sure.
Yeah, they in trouble now.
Yeah. You could tell because James Gunn talking crazy now. He's talking crazy. But so let's get into these ratings, bro. Uh, and then we'll talk about some of the end credit stuff. So what you got, man? What are you ranking this thing?
So I really like the movie. I would say that 2/3 of it,
Yeah,
it's incredible. I think it's
yeah,
one of the best movies I've seen. I think Marvel actually got a good movie.
yeah.
The only issue with it, I don't think it's quite the home run that they needed. I kind of do feel a little bit dragged down from their previous movies.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into this one, like I do think it's really good. I just don't think it's quite as refined that it needed to be. So I'm gonna stick with an 8.
Okay.
Walking out the theater, I thought, there's no way this could be lower than an 8. Maybe I'll bump it to a 9,
Yeah.
but I believe it's on the higher end of an 8, so I'm gonna give it an 8. And I just really love the way, like, to me, this is the standard of when you have a third movie. It needs to
Mm-hmm.
at least be on this level. It needs to be
Mm-hmm.
better than the previous ones, and I do think they do a good job with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's stick with the 8. Maybe in the future I'll bump it up to a 9. Uh, but 8 after one viewing. So
Okay.
definitely would watch again. How are you feeling about it?
So I was on the other opposite end of the spectrum initially, like coming out the theater, because I was like, dang, bro, like this joint was good, but it wasn't good too. Like it was moments where I didn't like, and I started off like a 7.5 because this movie is not mid at all, but it's just because it felt like it felt super inconsistent at times as far as like what they were doing and how they kind of jump around, but that's kind of the nature of the movie and the group, which I now understand. So with that in mind, um, I had to give it an 8. I gave it an 8 as well. Uh, but usually like I'm like I work my way down from like 10, like you know what I'm saying, and I end up at 8. But this one I kind of had to work up because it's like it's it's definitely like worth going to see in theaters, 100%,
Yeah,
100%. Um, but like you said, based on the previous two movies, you don't really have no high expectations for it. So
yeah,
like it has that power as well because they kind of can just, do almost anything. It's kind of like how they treat Deadpool movies as well. Like kind of anything goes. As long as it's like you can, have an explanation for it and make it make sense. So I'm gonna stick with an 8. Um, but after that, after thinking about that, I started thinking about the other two movies and how I would rate them. And for me, I definitely think it goes 3-1-2. Um, just
yeah.
because like the only thing that was wrong with the first movie was the villain.
Yep,
That was the
exactly.
only thing that was wrong. And then the second movie, it was the villain and just like, yo, I don't care about this. Like
I really don't like the second one, so
yeah. And I hate when movies big goodbyes enemies because it just takes everything
you got me with that word after the
out of
theater. I
where.
was like, "What'd you say?"
Yeah. So I feel like that. But how would you rank this the Guardians movies out of 3 or
Yeah,
the
I would
3?
go the same. I think 3 is the best Guardians movie.
Mhm.
Um, because somehow this it's kind of feel like you get reintroduced to all the characters, and then you also send off all the characters.
Yeah.
And the villain's better. Uh, like I said, I don't like the Adam Warlock thing, and it's more
Mhm.
emotional. I think it's definitely up there in emotion, and I just can't give it a 9 because I just didn't get the feeling walking out the theater that I saw something super special, but I definitely saw something I really really liked.
Mhm.
Um, and I did feel like that way when I saw Guardians 1.
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy because I didn't care about any of these characters at all, and I thought it was nice and fresh and unique.
Yeah.
Um, and then 2, I just did not feel that way. So yeah, 3, 2, 1, and we'll see what happens in the future. The Guardians, I do think Gunn did an incredible job and did
Mhm.
definitely show um, that his future may look very very bright. Maybe he does have the magic to revitalize everything.
Yeah. Um I agree. I agree. But What do you think about like where we're going now? Like not specifically with the Guardians because they kind of wrapped that up, but just like as far as like what's next for Marvel. Because we got to see some of the trailers for stuff coming up. But you know, as far as like where these characters will land, I think we're probably only going to see Star Lord. Anything recent. Everybody else could kind of just like pop in here and there, but I don't think anything is going to get built around anybody else. For pretty good
Wow.
longest, yeah, pretty good while, unless it's like a show or like some shorts or something like that. But how do you feel about the future as far as like where we're going?
Yeah, I really think he left it perfectly for someone else to pick up,
Mm-hmm.
for someone else to start fresh on what the direction they want to do. Maybe they whispered into his ears where they want to land the characters. I personally feel like how he ended it is a nice point where, every character can grow, every character can be
Sorry.
better, and every character could or could not come back.
Yeah.
Uh, we could bring Rocket in the Guardians as a TV show, like you're suggesting. That
Mm-hmm.
may be perfectly fine, and maybe we grow a little bit with Adam Warlock. And yeah, Star Lord definitely will just reappear in some type of movie in
Yeah.
any fashion because he is back on Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where we take place. So,
Yeah.
um, and I like you said, I don't believe we're getting the Guardians back until we start getting to the Avengers type things,
Yeah.
um, including Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as movies, I, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. This one's definitely gonna be. This is literally like the next best movie since No Way Home to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe we're not getting another one of these for a while. Maybe it's going to be Fantastic Four. That's the next good one.
Mm.
Um, so
Okay.
we'll see. Uh, but it does give me a little feel good from Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't buy it yet. That's all. So we'll
The
see how the
Marvel
next
Kool Aid
movies
is
go.
is empty. The Marvel Kool Aid is empty. We're seeing it
Yeah.
for what it is now.
How
That's
are you feeling? Where
crazy.
do you think they're taking the Guardians next? Do you feel like the next movies are going to be better than this? Any possibility?
I don't think we see the Guardians again unless it's gonna be the full Guardians. You know,
Volume four?
not B team. Well, no, not saying volume four. I don't know. Um, but like as far as them being together, like Peter, and Grimoire included, I can't, I don't even know if that will even happen anytime soon. Um, but I definitely could see like a show happening between these characters because I feel like that's the that is what Marvel should have done. Like I kind of look at it now as like Disney Plus shows are kind of like the B team or the Academy team, where they could spend the time developing it and putting moments into these characters. So when they do pop up on the big screen, it's more of a big event.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it's not so much based on like, damn, I wonder if this movie is going to be good. Like I want to go into the movie feeling like, oh yeah, we about to go see something. Like going into this movie with the higher evolutionary, I was like, I mean, it kind of just like looks like a knockoff like Kang at this point. No disrespect at all to anybody, but it's just because
Disrespect.
no, it's just because the suits look way too similar to where like I was just like, we just saw this, you know, and but like the performance of the High Evolutionary was way, it was really good. It was really good. So I can't knock that. But as far as like when we're gonna see them next, I can't even really call where we're gonna see Peter next. Um, at this point, like he's just on Earth now. Like he's just eating cereal. Like that's what he's doing. Like enjoying the good days, retiring and stuff like that. But I feel like Guardians are kind of like Deadpool. You kind of could plug them in at any moment and it just be like, yeah, we're here just because we were just at this other planet and we heard the distress call or whatever. And they could
Yep.
easily explain it. Um, but I I want to see more from Adam though. Just because like he's super powerful, but we don't really know the limits of his um, you know, potential. And I feel like because he's not fully developed mentally, I think would be really cool getting to see him kind of like understand the world and like where his place really is and what it should be. Because, he's chilling right now, but he could definitely at any moment go full Homelander mode and like that just be who he is now, and I want to kind of see um that play out. But that's kind of all I got for this joint. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about before we get out of here? Regarding anything Marvel, I can't think of nothing at this point. Um, nope, can't think of nothing.
Watch the Christmas specials because apparently
Oh,
that
that's what it
messed up.
was. That's what it was. Did you watch it yet?
No, I'll probably watch it this weekend.
Okay, I watched it and it was good. It was alright. It was a Christmas special. It was exactly what I thought it was gonna be, and I'm okay with
Next
that.
time I won't mess up.
Yeah,
If it's a main storyline movie, I'm watching the no matter what it is.
yeah,
Halloween special. Hey,
yeah.
let's do it.
Yep. But other than that, man, Chris, what you geeked about, bro?
I'm 3 episodes away from catching up to Demon Slayer, and
Okay, okay.
you know me, G. I don't really watch anime like that,
Yeah.
but I've been more inclined to watch more anime and get caught up and see what everyone's been talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty happy about that. I'm starting to feel like I see what people have been watching, and feel more included in the anime community nowadays. So
Mm-hmm.
super geeked about that. And yeah, I guess it's starting to become. We're gonna branch out to see what else we can watch because once that's done,
Yeah.
I got an episode of Succession to watch, and then I'm fresh again. I don't know. Maybe it's the One Piece journey again. Oh,
Ooh. Oh, oh, oh.
what you geeked about, G?
Um, I'm geeked to see the Little Mermaid, bro. I really want to see it. I really want to see it. Like
Really?
we saw that trailer, I was like, oh, yo, this thing. Like I just want to see what it looked like. Not so much. I don't really care about like the character of Ariel and like the storyline of Little Mermaid. Like I'm not really into all that. But I just want to. I really like how they use underwater, seeing things underwater now, and I just want to see that. And we saw the trailer for that, and then also we saw the trailer for the Flash movie, and it made me so mad. I'm like, yo, this joint actually looks pretty cool. Like I'm not like in on a big screen, like when I was watching it back home, initially on just like my computer monitor, I was like, okay. I mean, they just kind of just throwing characters in there, which is what they did before. But I'm definitely intrigued about that. And then as far as like what I've been watching, I've been watching Haikyuu a lot, and I think I'm in the fourth season, which is closer to the end, but I still got a lot. Like the seasons are a lot of episodes, um, so I'm getting there. And then as far as Succession, it's good. It's still good, but that magic is kind of like,
It's disappearing.
yeah, and I didn't think it was gonna happen because of what happens in the movie and or in the show, and I was like, dang, that impact was big. So I'm excited to actually talk about that when that whole season and arc is over. We also had Star Wars Day recently, which was pretty cool. I still gotta watch Star Wars Visions. Um, and then Free Comic Book Day was last weekend. It was really dope. I'm excited to read a lot of stuff I got for that. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I ain't really been paying attention to the playoffs like that. Like I see what's happening, but it's kind of like a blowout here and there, and then it's
Definitely
like,
yesterday.
yeah, and it's like I'll wait till like the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'll wait till the next round. I'll start watching
Week.
because these games are coming out mad late too. They be mad late. But that's all I got. Chris, you got anything else before we get up out of here, man?
Good stuff. Hopefully we'll figure out what we're gonna do next. Maybe I don't know. We'll figure out what's coming up because we don't got another big Marvel-y thing until June.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Spidey?
Yeah,
June?
I think, or it's either June or July. It's a summer. It's in the summer.
Okay.
Summer. Yeah. But yeah, appreciate y'all tuning in once again. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to rate this joint 5 stars on your favorite audio platforms. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, we'll see y'all next week, man. Stay geeked. Peace.